walk it.
Yeah, exactly.
I bought a machine that'll dig 1,200 numbers.
Wow.
And it's like, boop. It'll show us up on my screen on the TV, but it doesn't ring. I'm like, whew, another one I missed.
Well, hopefully that's done for a while.
Okay.
No, I think it's gonna be ugly for the next 2 months.
Yeah. We'll settle down. There'll be some crisis somewhere, and we'll get refocused elsewhere.
Some of them, there's an angle point, so you have to.
Separate tool. That probably is a new record. Make sure you're not sitting on a
It's been so warm all day. Like sweating. Hope not.
Does everyone want to put their mics on? All right. I'm going to be chairing the board tonight because Phil is out. So take it easy on me. It's only the second time I've done it. So the first thing is going to be roll call. We have Jason Charlin, Krista Swinter, Judd McIntosh, Jeremy Chubbuck, David Thompson, John Beckett, and Michael Costello all in attendance. I want to move or instantiate Jason Charlin and Michael Costello as voting members tonight. That's all you have to do is just say, make them voting members. Enjoy. Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? A motion to approve the minutes from our October 19th, 2016 meeting.
I have one small correction to make, and it's a correction to the correction we made last time, which is kind of funny. Okay, the sentence that starts with my name, Krista Schwentzer moved approval of the minutes with one amendment, namely to correct the word applicant to application in the first, and that's where it ends, and so that sentence is incomplete.
Fine.
And so let's have it say, namely to correct the word applicant to application at the end of the first sentence.
Any other comments? Corrections? Okay. Going to get a motion?
Make a motion, accept?
Second.
Let's vote. Unanimous. Nice. All right. So now we're going to move into the public hearings for a final subdivision plan application of M&M Truck Sales for an 8-lot subdivision on Union Street on a portion of a 9.1 acre lot identified as tax map 31-2 lot 1 to be known as Riverside Estates. Does the applicant want to give us the overview?
Yes, my name is Jim Kaiser. I'm here representing M&M Truck Sales. Also with me tonight is Maury and Mary Thayer, owners of M&M Truck Sales. As you noted, this is a project that's located down at the very end of Union Street, and we're proposing to do 8 lots on approximately 6.5 acres of land. The entire parcel is a little bit over 9 acres, with the remaining land being retained by the owners. The 8 lots will be served by public water, and 7 of the 8 lots will be served by on-site wastewater disposal systems, with first lot closest to the wastewater pumping station will be served by municipal wastewater disposal. We received preliminary approval from you back in September for this. You asked for a couple things to be further reviewed and considered. Those include confirmation of a right-of-way that went between the railroad spur and the main line of the railroad. Another one was increasing the strip of land to be deeded over to the town from 5 feet to 10 feet. And the third thing was confirmation of a sidewalk, whether it was deemed to be worthy of construction at this point in time, or if it was better delayed until future considerations are presented by the applicant. The Public Works Director was the one requested to give input on that. In addition to the 10-foot that you requested, which we did add to the additional 5 feet to the plan, we are providing the town with a turnaround easement at the end, very end of Union Street. It's informally been used over the years, and part of this approval will provide a deeded easement for a turnaround at that area. In addition, we're going to provide a drainage easement between lots 7 and 8, which is where water does drain currently in that area. It needs a little bit improvement to facilitate adequate drainage. We're going to basically construct that drainage swale before the sale or building permit on lot 8 or 7, so that will be done prior to those lots being developed. That preliminary plan, we discussed the traffic and the stormwater, and both of those were deemed to have minimal impacts as a result of this development. And we're here before you tonight to look for final approval. Also on that right-of-way between the two railroad spurs, the surveyors have taken a second look at that, and they have removed it from the boundary survey, and thus it's not on the subdivision plan that's before you tonight. So with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that the board has as you consider this project. Thank you.
Thank you. The next step, Evan, do you want to say a few words, speak to your...
I prepared a report that's included in your packets, focused primarily on the conditions that you set at preliminary plan approval and the responses to those conditions. Jim has summarized some of them, so I'll just be very brief on a couple of them, and that is that the 10-foot right-of-way width to widen Union Street to 50 feet, the right-of-way to 50 feet, is now on the plan. It's wider than 10 feet at the curve, but that puts Union Street entirely within what would then be the public right-of-way. So that has been complied with satisfactorily in the opinion of staff. You've got the memorandum from Rob Yerxa on the sidewalk. Rob recommends that the sidewalk construction wait until such time as there is future development on the remainder of this land, if and when there is future development of a scale that would warrant that sidewalk, and at that time it should be built all the way along this frontage at the same time, and that 10-foot right-of-way addition provides space for it. You saw his reasoning. He is concerned that maintaining a short length of sidewalk that doesn't connect to anything would be an unwise use of their maintenance resources, but fully understands that a sidewalk should be there eventually if there's going to be more development than these 8 lots, and ultimately leaves it to your wisdom as to what you would like to do. I've included in the packets, again, the sidewalk area map, so you can see that the current sidewalk terminates above the railroad tracks at the bottom of Island Avenue. That right-of-way is gone, that sort of orphan right-of-way that wasn't unclear had anything to do with this property. In any case, that's a moot issue now. It's no longer on the plan. And finally, wanted to make sure that all the legal documents relating to the turnaround easement, the drainage easement, and the fee transfer of this 10-foot width to Union Street were in proper order and reviewed by the town attorney. Our town attorney did review it, made a few comments, and those adjustments have been incorporated into the documents that you have before you tonight. So those are ready to go. My recommendations in terms of if you choose to approve this, that there would be a few conditions attached to it. These are somewhat standard conditions, but important conditions. One would be that all the transfers of land described in the draft quitclaim deed would be executed prior to the lots being sold or building permits issued, so that any buyer would obviously know that those transfers are being part of the subdivision. Second, that a note be added to the recording plan itself relating to the potential future construction of the sidewalk at the expense of whoever's doing the development on the adjacent land. That if that development is the scale that the planning board warrants sidewalk construction to serve not only that development, that extended development, but these 8 lots, that that it would be like their requirement of the board. So the people are put this, yeah, purpose is to put people on notice, and that this is not forgotten later on. So it'd be right on this note, right on the recording plan itself, as well as part of the record of the meeting, if that's what you choose to attach as a condition. Third, that to be very clear in the record, and so I think it's made clear in the record by making it a stated condition, that approval of this plan conveys no judgment, implicit or otherwise, and no legal standing to the concept plan that was presented as part. It was required to be presented as part of the preliminary plan, but only to inform the board as to whether there should be any adjustments for this 8-lot subdivision should future development come to pass. And I think it's just important for everybody to always understand that there's no judgment made, no review given, no legal standing given to that concept plan. And that any such additional development on the adjacent properties would need to start from the beginning in terms of all the reviews. A standard condition is that the plan would have to be recorded within 90 days. And then there is one other that I didn't, that the applicant and I discussed in their supplemental submission. They indicated, but I didn't put it here, but it should be. If you move ahead and attach a condition, that the corner pins all be put in place before the board actually, before those, and indicated that they have been put in place on the recording plan before the board signs the recording plan for filing at the Register of Deeds. But those would be recommendations should you get to the point of acting this evening and acting favorably on the subdivision.
All right, so before I open up the public hearing, I just wanted to say 2 things. The first is to reiterate number 3 that Evan mentioned, which is all we're acting on tonight is just this 8-lot subdivision. And the second thing is that the board, what we do is go through a standards-based process. We don't have an opinion on whether we like something or don't like something. We're supposed to look at all the steps that they need to go through, all the standards they need to satisfy, and if they satisfy each of those standards, just like a checkbox, then we have to say yes. It's not like we're making decisions about what the town should and shouldn't do. We have an ordinance, it lays out the different zones and what's allowable in those zones and what hurdles someone needs to get over to get into those zones. And so we just make the judgment call of, did they meet that threshold? So I just want to be clear that that's our job, okay? So with that, I'll open the public hearing, and anyone that wants to step up, feel free, please, and let us know your thoughts and ideas. Yep. And please state your name up at the microphone. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name's Paul Schrader. I live at 13 Hamlin Street, and I appreciate the care that everyone's been taking as far as reviewing and ultimately approving this proposal. A couple of things have come up that I wanted to ask about. One of them has to do with the hookup to the town wastewater disposal system. And I don't know if I have this correct or not, because, I was just told this by, someone else, but that the rule is something like if a new structure residence is put within a certain number of feet, maybe 200 feet of an existing sewer, then that structure has to be connected to that sewer. And the question that was raised to me, or the question that was raised just in general, because I'm not the one to answer it, is, well, in this particular case, the first structure has to connect to the town water, but then why is it because that one has to connect, why doesn't the next one have to connect to them, and then the next one have to connect to them? In other words, why doesn't this whole project have to connect to town, and why are we having 7 new septic systems installed down there in, in that place? So that's my first question.
Do you want me to answer that, or do you want to answer it, Evan?
I'd be glad to, or
Go for it. Yep.
yeah, it's a good question. It's a question that we asked, one of the very first questions we asked when the sketch plan came in, and we went to Joe Madigan, the superintendent of the wastewater treatment facility, to ask that question. The standard is indeed that if a property, if a lot, if a structure is within 200 feet of a public sewer line, it needs to connect to that public sewer line. And Mr. Madigan's advice, and the way he has always interpreted the ordinance and enforced it, and he's the fellow who does that, or advises on that, is that in this case, the first lot is within 200 feet. It has to connect. That connection is not a public line. It is a private connection line. It is not part of the public system. It's not part of the system that the town owns or maintains. That's simply a private connection, just like from anybody's house out to the street. And so that doesn't trigger this chain effect of 200 foot. Everybody's within 200 feet. The key question at the beginning was, does the 200 feet apply to the entire 9.1 acre parcel, or just to the first lot that's being created out of that 9.1 acre parcel? And Mr. Madigan's opinion is that, according to the ordinance, that applies to the first lot that's created. And so that's what has been, that's the standard that's been applied.
Okay, thanks. After having been here for the previous hearing, I have a concern that I raised then, and I just want to make sure that it's understood, and it's possibly not something that can be acted on, or maybe it's just something that can be acknowledged by the developers, and that and that this is a very established neighborhood with long-standing residents who consider their neighborhood to be very precious to them. And that this development has the potential of fitting in appropriately with that neighborhood, that long-standing neighborhood. And it also has the potential of overshadowing that neighborhood. And just through the character of the structures, making that neighborhood something very different from what it has been through the years. And my concern has to do with footprint and height. And I think the understanding I got the last time was that there is quite legitimately or appropriately a minimum footprint or a minimum square footage for these structures. I'm not quite sure how high they can go. I'm not quite sure whether the facing, the elevation facing the road has a limit. I'm not sure how tall these structures can be, 2 or 3 stories. The subdivision is named, is it Riverview?
Riverside Estates, I believe is what it,
Okay. Well, if it's Riverside, it's not quite Riverside because it's on the other side of the road. If it's Riverview, which I'm, I guess, pleased it isn't, you know, we have to think about, well, what do people think they're getting when they get these lots? So I would just, personally, I would just like to caution the board, the developers, everyone, that there are historic and neighborhood values that should be respected as these lots are developed.
understood. Your concern is that they would be potentially too large?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not aware of putting caps on the sizes of things. There is a height maximum, which is 35 feet. So they couldn't be any larger than that. But that would be, I mean, not many 3-story houses around there, you know, plus a basement, so.
Well, you know, I don't know. I've been in and out of various discussions around town for years, and I do know a town council member who once talked about the idea of Water Street being a prime location for 3-story condos.
But that's not, right, but that's not what this is. These are single-family homes.
Understood.
Okay.
I'm just cautioning that I hope that everyone who's involved in this going forward is sensitive that there's a long-standing neighborhood that has a certain kind of character, that has a fragility that I think we should be very respectful of.
Understood.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to?
Hey, good evening. My name's Alan Hutchinson. I live in 24 Hamlin Street. I'm a former planning board member. I spent 8 years sitting up where you folks are sitting back in the 1990s. It's more enjoyable being on this side than on your side, but nice to be back. But what I just wanted to, I'm sorry I missed the September meeting. I was unavailable to be here, but just wanted to share a few thoughts with you. From my perspective, my family, my wife and my perspective as being residents of Hamlin Street, which is just off Island Avenue, as you head down to Union Street. And we've been there for 38 years. We think it's one of the, all these small neighborhoods in Orono, in our minds are extraordinary, just extraordinary assets for us. And we just absolutely believe that their best use is residential. And open space, and we just hope that you continue to consider that as interest is shown in doing things with these lands and these, particularly down on Island Avenue, Margin, Union, or wherever this might go. There hasn't been a lot of activity, development activity in that our little neighborhood, which that end of town. So this is it's a big change, as Paul said. So as these changes occur, just please keep in mind how just absolutely special these places are. There's no place in Orono that we would choose to live other than this old community, neighborhood street that we're on. There's just no place else we'd go. And we have property, we've invested and restored 3 houses on Hamlin Street now in our 38 years. We just believe in these places so much. We continue to own 3 of those, rent 2, and live in the one we first bought 38 years ago as a restoration project, and we just love these neighborhoods. And the river, too, is part of this open space. Keep in mind the importance of open space as you go forward here, because this river is an extraordinary asset as well. And I think it's one that this town has not taken full advantage of, understanding just the potential it has to bring just a true sense of character to this town that we haven't really captured before. So as this growth occurs, please keep that in mind. You know, the ability to protect that resource, keep those shorelines solid and looking good from both the river looking in and from the roads and houses looking out. And keep in mind the importance of providing open space and access to that river. One of the things that frustrates us a bit, and we wish it was different, is that there's not a lot of public open space when you get into that part of town, down Island Avenue, Union Street, Margin Street, that area. It could use some more. So please keep that in mind as well. So I'm not going to express opinion one way or the other in terms of what's being proposed, other than just simply to say that my wife and I share the view that residential use and open space use is the right use for that part of town. In the past, it's been challenged by some incompatible industrial type uses that went in around there. They're kind of winding down, and we hope that continues, and it can continue to move towards residential and this open space side of things, and single-family residential. That's what these neighborhoods have been. That's what they need to continue to be, and it will bring great vitality to this town. So good luck.
Is there anyone else that would like to say a few words? Okay, I'll keep it open if someone changes their mind, and I'll open it up to the board to thoughts, questions, opinions. Evan? All right, we'll go down the line. I actually have one question before and then I'll go down the line and just make sure everybody's doesn't have anything else. So I want to be clear, in order to have a duplex in MDR, you need 40,000 square feet, correct?
You would need, if you had a duplex on public water and public sewer, you would need 40,000 square feet.
So that would be lot 1 only. So these would be single-family homes.
These are single-family homes, and the proposed declaration of covenants and restrictions say they shall be single-family
Right.
homes, so that will be part of everybody's deed.
Perfect. All right, just want to make sure.
Homes,
Yep.
and with some modest minimum sizes. And
1,100 and 1,200 for two-story, yep.
Yeah, 1,000 for single-story, 1,200 for a split.
Yep.
Something like that.
Yep, okay. So, Jason, do you have any,
I have no questions.
Krista?
No.
Jeremy?
I have no questions.
No question.
David? John?
Nothing.
Michael?
The only one I would have questioned is, it was already been addressed by Evan with the sidewalks.
Okay, all right. Any other public comment? All right, I'll close the public comment area. At this point, finding a fact.
Yes, as always, my constant caution is, these are draft for your consideration and subject to revision, even reversal by you in any way that you see fit. It's just the way it's streamlined the meeting.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you. All right, I'm going to read these into the record, one by one. After each one, I'll make sure everybody's good with what I've read. Draft for consideration of and subject to revision by the planning board, proposed findings of fact, Riverside Estates subdivision, M&M Truck Sales Incorporated, final subdivision review, November 16, 2016. Pursuant to Article 7, Section 18-210, subdivision review, the Orono Planning Board has considered the application of M&M Truck Sales Incorporated for final subdivision approval of an 8-lot, single-family residential subdivision to be known as Riverside Estates on a 6.45-acre portion of a 9.1 acre parcel on Union Street in the medium-density residential district, identified as Assessor's Tax Map 31-2, Lot 1. Based on all the evidence presented by the applicant, reviewing agencies, town departments, and the public, the planning board has found the following. Number one, character of the land. That the character of the land to be developed can be used safely for the building purposes without danger to health or peril from fire, flood, or other menace. Okay. Number two, conformity with the other laws and regulations. That the proposed subdivision plan conforms to other applicable laws and regulations, that the subdivision does not divide the land into 15 or more lots on 30 or more acres and therefore does not require review under the Main Site Location of Development Act, that the subdivision will not generate the level of traffic that would require a traffic movement permit from the Maine Department of Transportation's traffic movement permit, and that the subdivision will not disturb natural resources that would require review under Maine's Natural Resources Protection Act. Number three, lots. That the minimum dimensions are met for individual lots in a medium-density residential district served by public water supply and either public sewer lines for Lot 1, or subsurface water disposal for Lots 2 through 8, and that all lots are buildable with appropriate lot sizes, sidelines, lot frontages, shapes, and suitable locations for driveway access. Okay. Number four, drainage improvements. A, that based on the material submitted and the review and comments of the town engineer, stormwater runoff from the subdivision is naturally directed toward and retained by a wetland area near the rear of the property and will not significantly increase the rate of runoff beyond the property's boundaries, and that drainage facilities, including a drainage easement to be conveyed to the town, are large enough to accommodate potential runoff from the drainage area and to convey upstream flows generated by a 25-year frequency event without overloading the system or flooding areas not specifically designed to be flooded. B, that the subdivision is planned to protect property from the hazard of flooding. Riverside Estates proposed finding of fact, no, page 1, I don't want to read that one, cancel that line. C, that the stormwater management system for this 8-lot subdivision is not subject to the proposed construction monitoring requirements of Chapter 13, Article 4 of the Orono Code of Ordinances. Any issues with item 4? Okay. 5, open space, wildlife, life habitat, and recreation land. 5A, that the subdivision which will be limited to single-family dwellings on the relatively large lots along an existing street will not unduly impact the aesthetics of the land. 5B, that the site to be occupied by the 8 lots does not impact unique natural areas or known or suspected historic or prehistoric resources, and does not impact trails or open space that are in public ownership or legally reserved for public use. 5C, that no portion of the property lies within 250 feet of other significant wildlife habitat mapped by the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. And 5D, that all freshwater wetlands within the subdivision have been identified and mapped, and that the development avoids alteration of these wetlands. 6, streets, traffic, pedestrians, and parking. 6A, that the subdivision does not involve any new streets, but rather is located along an existing public street and complies with the requirement of the subdivision ordinance to provide to the town land area needed to bring the width of the streets right of way to the current standard of 50 feet. 6B, that the level of new traffic from the 8-lot subdivision will not have undue adverse effect on existing levels of service of the area street system or cause unreasonably highway or public road congestion or unsafe conditions on public streets. 6C, that no sidewalks currently exist in the immediate area to which a new sidewalk along the subdivision could connect, and that adequate provision has been made by the addition of a 10-foot of width to the Union Street right-of-way for a future sidewalk along the frontage of the subdivision should the planning board, in its review of potential future additional development on the adjacent land owned by the developer, deem a sidewalk necessary to be built at the developer's expense. And 6D, that lot areas are adequate to provide for off-street parking to serve homes on these lots. Anything on 6? Okay. 7, Pollution control. 7A, that the development will not result in undue surface or groundwater or air pollution. 7B, that the development provides for erosion control such that there will not be unreasonable soil erosion or a reduction in the land's capacity to hold water so as to create a dangerous or unhealthy condition. 7C, that there are no rivers, streams, or brooks within or abutting the property and that there will be no crossings of such, and the development will not have undue adverse impact on any river, stream, or brook. And 7D, that the soils are adequate, as demonstrated by test pits evaluated by a licensed site evaluator to accommodate subsurface wastewater disposal, and the development will not adversely affect the quality or quantity of groundwater. Any comments on 7? 8, utilities and solid waste management. 8A, that the development will be adequately served by public water supply in the case of Lot 1, the town's wastewater collection and treatment system, and those systems have the capacity to provide these services. 8B, that the development will be provided with electrical, telephone, and telecommunication service adequate to meet anticipated use as a result of the development, and that utility services will be from the existing lines along Union Street. 8C, that the town has the means to serve this single-family residential subdivision with its municipal solid waste collection and disposal system. And 8D, that the subdivision does not involve the handling, storage, or use of any hazardous, special, or radioactive material. Any questions or, Nate? Okay. 9, financial and technical capacity, that the development does not involve the construction or extension of streets, sewer, or water supply infrastructure dedicated to public ownership or maintenance, and therefore does not require a subdivision improvement guarantee for the proper construction of such facilities, and that the applicant has demonstrated the technical ability to construct the drainage swale between lots 7 and 8 to the specifications indicated in the subdivision plan prior to the town acceptance of the drainage easement containing the swale and prior to issuance of a building permit for construction of these lots. Anything on number 9? Questions or concerns? Okay. With that in the record, if there's no further discussion, the public hearing's closed at this point. If someone wants to say something, can I open it back up to?
You can.
Okay. Public hearing back open. Thank you. Yeah, come up here, say your name.
Thank you. Just as I was listening to that and looking at the map again, first time, just a question. And the question had to do with, just trying to understand this. Well, the question, I guess my basic question is, what does the ordinance say about open space requirements in a subdivision of this type?
Good. Evan.
There are no explicit open space requirements for what we'll call a traditional subdivision. If there is a cluster subdivision,
Right.
which comes with a significant density bonus, then there are some very specific open space requirements. So, for example, if these were clustered on small lots,
Right. Then there's that.
and then I think in a single-family subdivision, I'm going to say it's either 25 or 30% of the land area must be permanently protected as
Right.
open space, and that open space has to take on a certain character.
Yeah, but in a traditional one of this nature,
There is
not
no
requirement.
requirement, that's right.
Well, and I'm just trying to see if I understand this correctly. So the ownership that's currently under review ends at this lot line, or does it end?
No, the open space, the ownership continues to the retained lot that you're pointing there, and the ownership actually goes to the adjacent.
The retained lot.
The retained lot, when I say retained lot, I mean, according to the applicant has used this terminology, so I will use it, and I think it's correct. This is a 9.1 acre site. Eight lots are being carved out of that 9.1 acres, and there's a retained area of about 2.5 acres.
Which is in here.
Which is there. And then there's another 26 to 27 acres
That abuts.
also owned by the same entity that abuts that.
Okay. And looking at that concept plan, I understand that's not under review tonight.
Right.
So I'm just trying to understand it, and maybe you could help me understand that. Are these lots in here? Is this shown on this concept plan? The future use of what this will become?
Yes.
Is that what I'm looking at here?
There are
Yep.
2 or 3 lots involved after.
Could you go up to the mic?
Yeah.
The concept plan that we submitted does include the retained land that we're retaining as part of this subdivision. So it does show on the conceptual plan the development of this retained land.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Thank you.
I'm going to close the public hearing then. Again, finding the facts,
I have one comment related to those.
go ahead.
I think in the drainage improvements, we had note that it was to be completed prior to,
You mean between
The-
lot 7 and 8?
yeah, prior to the deed being given to the town.
Yep.
But within the deed, it says it would be completed prior to sales, I think, and sales are occupancies on lot 7 or 8.
So you want to change number 9 on the deed
I
to
think
essentially
to
reflect
avoid
before the
conflict
permit
of-
instead of sale?
Yeah.
Agreed. So number 9 on the deed is actually uses the word prior to the sale, or actually, or the issuance of a building permit, so we just want to cross out sale, I think. Or maybe we want to keep it in place.
Which, I'm sorry,
So item number 9 on the
On the
deed
bottom
on
of
general
9,
notes?
yeah.
item 9.
On the plan? Do you have a copy of
Under
the?
financial technical capacity.
Correct. It says we're to construct that swale prior to the deed acceptance of the drainage easement. But within the drainage easement, it says it's to be constructed prior to sale of those lots, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, let's just make Mr. Chair, it is important to make those consistent, so let me just see what the deed says.
Understood. Take a few minutes to.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, what the drainage easement says, among other things, is that grantor, that is the applicant, M&M Truck Sales, agrees that it shall construct a swale in the drainage easement according to the grading plan attached here to as Exhibit B. This obligation shall apply to grantors, successors, and assigns. Grantee will not issue a certificate of occupancy for any structure built upon Lot 7 or 8 unless and until such swale is constructed. So that's what it should say.
On the deed,
That's in the
On the-
deed, and so in the...
on the plan,
in the-
excuse me.
In the
Yeah.
findings of fact, is that what you're referring to, I think, Jim, is it should say prior to town issuance of a certificate of occupancy for any structure built upon Lot 7 or 8.
Because you're talking about the general notes on the plan, right? That would be
Within
on-
the easement itself.
Be on the plat? Oh, the easement, okay.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
easement
the
that
deed.
we're giving to you says that we won't construct that swale, or we will construct it at a certain time in place. Your finding of fact says it will be constructed before we give you that easement, so those are in contradiction to each other.
Oh, I see.
It will be, so it should state, to be consistent, thank you for pointing it out, it should, 9, financial and technical capacity in the findings of fact. The last phrase should say, prior to the town issuing a certificate of occupancy for any structure built upon Lot 7 or 8. So replace prior to town acceptance of the drainage easement containing the swale. It should say, prior to town issuing a certificate of occupancy for any structure on these lots.
And so should I read 9 into the record again, in its corrected version?
That's a good idea.
Okay. Nice catch, thank you. I'm going to read in item 9 again here, under the findings of fact, with that corrected last sentence. Item 9, financial and technical capacity. The development does not involve the construction or extension of street, sewer, or water supply infrastructure dedicated to public ownership or maintenance, and therefore does not require a subdivision improvement guarantee for the proper construction of such facilities, and that the applicant has demonstrated the technical ability to construct the drainage swale between lots 7 and 8 to the specifications indicated in the subdivision plan prior to town acceptance of the drainage easement containing the swale and prior to issuing a certificate of occupancy for any structure on these lots.
I think there was a cross-out that was still involved in that.
Yeah, I think you can cross out everything from acceptance through the word construction.
Uh,
So it's a prior to town issuance of a certificate of occupancy
All right, let's
for
try it.
any
Got it.
structures
Yep,
on these lots.
let's try it one more time then. Should I read the whole 9 in again?
Why don't you give him your copy, Evan, and then that'll be,
I think I've got it at
Yeah.
this
got
point.
it, okay.
Do I need to read all 9, all of 9 again, or just the
Well,
last
just the
sentence?
last phrase,
Okay.
just the last after the semicolon there.
Prior to town issuing a certificate of occupancy for any structure on these lots. Okay? All right, I think we're good there. Thank you. All right, so we have the finding the facts in. Do I have a motion? Is that the next step, Evan?
Yes, the motion, the next step, and the motion should contain any conditions.
Right.
Approval that,
Which would be the 4 you outlined plus the 5th one you mentioned tonight with the pins.
yes, that would be my recommendation.
And, you wanna
Before we go into conditions, can I make I guess, a request or a comment, I guess, on number 2? I've had plans, and I'm actively involved in a plan that ended up having some notes that were contingent upon future development, and what happens is they have caused some issues. I think this is very well understood that we have an obligation, depending on the board's determination, if future development warrants a sidewalk going down the entire length of the 9.1 acre parcel. But I think, I don't know that it necessarily needs to go on the subdivision plat. It would be within the right-of-way. It's not as if it's going to take any of the land out of the lots. It's within the right-of-way that we're providing that additional 10 feet to the town. So I'm just a little bit leery of putting it on when it is something that is open to determination from the board at the next consideration of future development from that standpoint. So I just put that out on the table, and if the board does, I certainly would appreciate something a little bit less cumbersome than the entire number 2.
I don't know anyone else. My opinion is that because these are 2 separate parcels and the future is hard to predict, my opinion is that we would not remove it. The language itself, I don't know.
I concur.
I agree.
I don't mind it being a condition of approval, just not on the plat itself.
I think the problem we've had in the past with that kind of thing is that, in 5 years or 6 years, the plat is easily accessible, and we can see it, whereas trying to find all this stuff and what happened 5, 6, 10 years ago.
Oh, and that's the problem I'm having with another one that doesn't, it's outdated aspect of it, and now it's causing all kinds of problems because it was on the plat, so.
Yeah, in this case, there's no date on the plat. I think I've seen these notes before where they're dated, and then it does cause confusion, and there's times. There's no date on this. The language itself, Evan, I don't know if you have an opinion on trying to change it or narrow it down a little bit, but I don't know if anyone else has an opinion on.
Well, I think it does need to go on the plan, and because we don't know when the next thing happens, and this is kind of a compromise. There are those of us who really wanted a sidewalk now.
Yes.
And we are compromising on the promise that it will come later. But we want to be sure it really does come later.
Again, I concur.
Agreed.
I agree. I agree.
Okay. So,
Mr.
wanna keep-
Chairman, I understand that this is not, streamlined prose, and I'm not an attorney, so it may be unnecessarily wordy, but let's just go through it. If you don't mind, I'm going to read it kind of slowly, just see if you see anything there that shouldn't be there or that could be streamlined. I think Mr. Kaiser's thinking about the logistics of fitting it on the plan. M&M Truck Sales, Inc., or its successors are assigned in ownership of the land identified on this plan as remaining land of M&M Truck Sales and/or the adjacent land located at the south end of Union Street and are identified on this plan as additional land of M&M Truck Sales, Inc. So that's identifying who's responsible and where the land is that we're talking about.
Yep.
And there is, on the plan, there are these two notations, one that says, remaining land of M&M Truck Sales, and another saying additional land of M&M Truck Sales. So I thought that those were convenient phrases to identify exactly what we're talking about. So I don't know that that could be streamlined. It's a little wordy, but it's what it says on the plan.
Can you just put and/or, quote, additional land of M&M sales?
and don't say where it's located?
Well, it has, it's on the plat, so it's, and you can eliminate almost the whole line there. And/or additional land of M&M truck sales.
And/or the identified.
Because
and/or
it's
the
identified, it's identified both of them right in the very first, before it said the first one identifies them. So it's just and/or the additional land.
Yes, you could do that. So strike out everything from the adjacent to the word as. So it'll say and/or, quote, additional land of M&M Truck Sales, Inc. Shall be responsible at its sole cost for construction to town and other applicable standards of a sidewalk and any other infrastructure along the entire frontage of the subdivision shown on this plan, if such remaining or additional land is developed in the future, and the Orono Planning Board determines such infrastructure to be necessary to serve this subject subdivision as well as the new development. So that whole phrase says, signs of responsibility, the obligation. But, if all that ever happens here is two more lots, you might not believe that a sidewalk is necessary.
Yeah. We
So
wanna
it's
keep that,
giving
yep.
future planning boards some leeway to make that judgment. But if they do, it shall be done the entire length of this subdivision, as well as whatever might be proposed, and at the cost of whoever is doing that development.
Yep.
And then finally, no building permit shall be issued for such remaining or additional land until the planning board has made its determination. So
Yeah.
it sets a process in
That's
motion.
inherent though, isn't it? Because the remaining land is part of the subdivision, so
Well,
that has to have planning board approval.
if,
And the additional land, if it was sold as a single parcel, wouldn't that be outside of planning board review?
I think there are enough things that could happen over time that
Scenarios.
the first few structures might never come before the board. If it was sold one lot at a time over in 5-year periods, if that additional land, that adjacent land was divided into two, not creating a third parcel, and so now that is not a subdivision of that additional land. And each of those parcels were bought by a developer who was planning on doing something. I think it's a caution that is, my advice is to stick with that. And it leaves some leeway and judgment for this planning board or future planning board as to whether it's necessary. So if somebody wants to come in and says, I just want to buy the whole 26 acres, I just want to have a single home on it, and that's it, then you might say, oh, okay, no sidewalk required, go ahead. but you will have had a chance to look at it and understand the intentions of any future buyer or user of that land, and we just don't know, and the developer doesn't know, what might actually happen there in the future.
Anyone have any concerns with the rest of this language?
I think it would be prudent to keep it in as Evan has outlined.
I agree.
I agree with what Switzer said originally. We did make some concessions on the sidewalk, and I think we, in my opinion and experience, this is quite specific, and it needs to be quite specific. So I think it should be left as it is.
I think it's unanimous that we'll strike that one set of 8 words, which it sounded like you were okay with that, Evan.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it remains the same. Are you okay with striking that, or do you want to leave the whole thing the same way?
Oh, I'm okay with striking that phrase, and
Adjacent
it
land
is
located.
duplicative of the language, so from the adjacent land located at the south end of Union Street and identified on this plan as, all those words can be struck.
Okay, perfect. Okay. All right. Any more discussion, since we've had quite a bit here since the finding of fact? All right, do I have a motion? You want to give it a shot, Jeremy?
I can give it a shot.
Do you have the PINS language? Did
I
you
have
get that from
only-
him?
I only have part of the pins language, so if we could read that again, what we talked about earlier. I had the corner pins put in place and indicated as such before, and then I didn't get the rest.
Yes, what we'd be looking for, and what the applicant has stated in their supplemental submission, is that the corner pins of each lot shall be placed and shown on the recording plan prior to signing and recordation. So when you sign it, you're actually seeing where those pins are.
Understood. You ready, Jeremy?
I hope so. I make a motion that we accept the proposal as outlined with the following 5 recommendations. First, that all transfers of land as described in the draft quitclaim deed and covenant submitted as part of this final subdivision plan be executed and filed at the Penobscot County Registry of Deeds with copy and recorded deed provided to the Town Code Enforcement Office before any lots are sold or building permits for construction on the lots are issued. 2, that the following note be added to the recording plan: M&M Truck Sales Incorporated or its successors or assigns in ownership of the land identified on this plan as remaining land of M&M Truck Sales and/or additional land of M&M Truck Sales Incorporated shall be responsible at its sole cost for construction to the town and other applicable standards of a sidewalk and any other infrastructure along the entire frontage of the subdivision shown on this plan, if such remaining or additional land is developed in the future, and the Orono Planning Board determines such infrastructure to be necessary to serve this subject subdivision, as well as new development. No building permit shall be issued for such remaining or additional land until the Planning Board has made its determination. 3, that that approval of this final subdivision plan conveys no judgment, implicit or otherwise, and no legal standing to a concept plan submitted by M&M Truck Sales as part of its preliminary subdivision plan application for its remaining and adjacent lands, and that any plan of development for the remaining and adjacent lands shall follow all procedural, submission, and review requirements in effect at the time of the proposed development. 4, that the final subdivision plan must be recorded at the Penobscot County Registry of Deeds within 90 days of the date of approval. And 5, that corner pins of each lot be put in place and indicated as such on the plans before signing and
recording.
Recording.
Thank you. Can we get a second?
Second.
All right, let's vote.
Thank you very much.
All right. Moving on, old business none, new business none, discussion, December meeting.
Yes, normally at this time, we look at the date of the December meeting and decide around whether it's too close to Christmas or remove it, but at this point, we have no applications that have come to us. And today would have been the deadline for applications to come to us for the December meeting.
So we get a Christmas gift.
You get a Christmas gift. There will be no meeting in December. Let me just check the date. I just want to make sure that the 30-day,
If someone in the public has a question, I'm not sure,
is entirely up to you folks as to whether you want to,
entertain that or
as part of the
not.
discussion, have somebody, and it does no harm if you wish to.
Sure, if you want to say something, feel free.
Hi, Paul Schrader again. I don't know if that was out of order. This isn't pertaining to your current discussion. It's an observation I have about getting information about these meetings onto your website. That really I haven't been in planning board for 3 or 4 years, and trying to get up to date about when these meetings were, what the agendas are, what happened, minutes of previous meetings. It's not on your site. The last minutes up was like July. I'm not talking about today, I'm just talking about like this last week when I came last time. The agenda wasn't up for the current meeting last time, maybe this time. I just would like to request to the town that if the next meeting is in November, your website doesn't say your next meeting is August. And I'd like to request to the town, if your last meeting was in August, that the minutes don't show that your last meeting was in June. So please know that there are those of us who do depend on information from the town being current on the website, especially as to do with agendas and current business. So that's my observation on that.
Right, Paul, can
Yeah.
I ask a question? Are you going to the planning office site?
Town of Orono Planning Board site.
Okay. And
I don't know how many sites there are,
No,
but
there's
it's
just
a
one.
Town of Orono Planning Board. It has agendas, it has upcoming meetings, it has minutes, and it was not up to date.
Okay.
Now,
we'll
it
take a
might
look
be
at-
all up to date today, but as of the last meeting, it was not up to date at all.
It probably wasn't. We've been short an administrative assistant. We now have a very,
Yeah, we had some
Okay.
changes recently.
Okay,
And-
well, I'm really happy. I'm just giving you my
That's good.
feedback,
And
and
I-
I think you should take note of it.
and I will.
We will.
And I appreciate that you're all up to date now and everybody's up to speed, but you weren't recently, and it's not helpful.
Understood.
I think I simply didn't keep, that's absolutely true.
Thank you.
But tried, but I just couldn't. But now I got two people, both of them were very competent to do this sort of thing, and it is our intent to do it.
Okay, I appreciate it. You know, I do pay attention, and I would like to be informed, and I think all the public wants to keep up to date as much as you're up to date on what's going on here.
And for the record, everything is up to date now, but also for the record, we do not put the minutes on the website until they have been approved by the
They'll be
planning.
delayed at least 5 weeks, something like that, because we have to approve them before they get posted.
Okay, I understand. We're all doing our best. It was not where it should be recently.
Agreed.
It's all going to be great going forward. That was why I made this comment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, December meeting, you were saying, Evan?
Yeah, I don't expect the 30-day deadline would be November 21st, so on Monday. Nobody's coming to talk to us, so I don't think there will be a meeting, but with a caveat that it's possible in the next 3 days, somebody could come in with an application or something. But that's if the meeting is on December 21. Now, December 21 is not a,
So what if we said it was December 14th? It's too late.
We'd probably have to give some leeway because we didn't announce that.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, if there were a meeting, I assume it would be you'd want to move it to December 14th.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know what everyone else is. Christmas week is, the 21st would be the Wednesday.
That's Christmas week. yes.
14th would be better.
It doesn't matter to me, either way.
We will take as guidance that if there is a meeting, it'll be December 14th, but we will let you know early next week to confirm that there was no business that came before us.
Okay.
Or if there is something, we'll tell you that.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, can I get a motion to,
Move we adjourn.
Seconded.
all those in favor? I didn't think you voted there for a second, David. Thank you.